Story 1. The Backyard Breach. The summer air was thick with the scent of grilled burgers and the distant echo of patriotic anthems as the 4th of July weekend descended upon the quiet, suburban town of Willow Creek. For Jake Harper, a lanky 19-year-old with dreams bigger than his parents' modest two-story home, this was the perfect opportunity to seize a fleeting moment of freedom. His parents were away on a rare getaway to the coast, leaving the house and its sparkling backyard pool under his temporary reign. With a mischievous glint in his eye, Jake planned a modest gathering, a celebration of independence that would echo through the neighborhood without drawing too much attention. He invited 20 of his closest friends, a manageable number, he thought, to keep the chaos confined to the backyard. The pool shimmered under the late afternoon sun, beckoning guests to bring their swimsuits, while a stash of last year's fireworks promised a grand finale to rival the town's official display. As dusk settled, the backyard transformed into a vibrant hub of laughter and clinking bottles. Red plastic cups dotted the lawn like wildflowers, and the air buzzed with the carefree energy of youth. Jake, ever the cautious host, enforced a strict rule. No one was to enter the house. He'd seen enough teen movies to know how quickly a party could spiral into a mess of spilled drinks and broken vases. The night unfolded smoothly. Friends splashed in the pool, others engaged in spirited rounds of beer pong, and the fireworks, when they finally lit up the street, drew gasps and cheers. By midnight, the energy began to wane, and by 1:30 a.m., the last stragglers had stumbled home, leaving Jake alone amidst a sea of discarded cups and empty cans. Exhausted but content, he dragged himself inside, changed into pajamas, and collapsed into bed, the faint buzz of alcohol lulling him towards sleep. But the night was far from over. A sharp crackle pierced the silence, like a string of firecrackers igniting just beyond his window. Jake bolted upright, heart pounding, and peered through the blinds. To his horror, a line of firecrackers sputtered and popped beside the pool, their sparks dangerously close to the inflatable floats bobbing on the water. Confusion turned to anger. Someone was messing with him. He threw open the window and shouted, "Who's out there? This isn't funny." The backyard was dark, the only light coming from the dying embers of the firecrackers. No one answered. Barefoot and still buzzing from the night's revelry, Jake raced downstairs, sliding open the glass door to the backyard, but keeping the screen door closed as a flimsy barrier. He scanned the shadows, his voice trembling as he called out again, "Show yourself!" The firecrackers had fizzled out, leaving an eerie stillness. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he frantically texted the group chat, demanding to know who was still at his house. A few replies trickled in, friends claiming they were home or asleep, but most remained silent, likely passed out from the night's festivities. Jake stepped onto the patio, the cool concrete grounding him as he searched for signs of a prankster. Finding nothing, he retreated inside, locking the door behind him and trudging back to his room, chalking it up to a cruel joke. He'd barely settled back into bed when a new sound froze his blood, a faint thud from the upstairs living room, followed by the unmistakable bounce of a ping-pong ball skittering across the hardwood floor. His heart hammered against his ribs. Had someone slipped inside during the party? A friend too drunk to leave, perhaps, passed out on a couch? Or worse, someone who didn't belong? Jake crept to his bedroom door, pressing his ear against the wood. Silence. Then a creak. Footsteps, deliberate and heavy, approached from the hallway. The doorknob rattled, and Jake's breath caught as he realized he'd locked it earlier out of habit. A loud bang shook the door, and he stumbled back, screaming, "Get out, or I'll shoot!" It was a bluff. He didn't own a gun, but panic fueled his bravado. A deep voice rumbled from the other side. "Jay, you in there?" Before Jake could process the name, another voice, closer, impossibly close, answered, "Yeah." He spun around, eyes locking onto a shadowed figure in the corner of his room, near his dresser. A scream tore from his throat as the man stepped forward, a glint of metal in his hand. A gun. His face was obscured by a black ski mask, but his eyes gleamed with menace. "Shut up or you're dead," he hissed, clamping a gloved hand over Jake's mouth. The door clicked open, revealing a second masked intruder. They whispered to each other, their words inaudible but urgent, as Jake sat trembling on the bed, the gun trained on him. The second man left the room, his footsteps echoing toward Jake's parents' bedroom. He returned moments later, demanding the combination to the safe. Jake's voice cracked as he insisted he didn't know it, a truth that earned him a menacing glare. A third intruder joined them, and the trio worked with chilling efficiency, ransacking the house for valuables. Jake's mother's jewelry, left carelessly on her dresser, vanished into a duffel bag, along with a laptop, a watch, and anything else they deemed worthy. The ordeal stretched on for an agonizing eternity, each second ticking by with the weight of a lifetime. Finally, one of the men barked, "Let's go!" The gunman lingered a moment longer, his gaze boring into Jake before he bolted out the door. Jake heard the back door slam and raced to the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of their getaway car. But the street was empty. Trembling, he dialed 911, his voice shaking as he recounted the nightmare to the dispatcher. When the police arrived, their questions were relentless. Did you have cameras? Did you see their faces? Did you hear any names? Jake could only offer that one of them was called Jay, a detail that felt useless in the face of such terror. The investigation yielded little. Neighbors' doorbell cameras captured nothing, and the police speculated that the robbers had targeted Jake's house after spotting the party, a calculated move to exploit the chaos. Jake's parents returned the next day, their anger at his unauthorized gathering tempered by relief that he was unharmed. But the violation lingered, a shadow over the house that no amount of cleaning could erase. Jake became an advocate for security cameras, urging everyone he knew to install them. The memory of that night, of Jay's voice and the cold steel of the gun, haunted him, a reminder that even in the safety of suburbia, danger could lurk just beyond the backyard. Story 2. The Sump Stalker. The 4th of July in 2015 was a sweltering affair in the small town of Crestwood, where the annual fireworks display at Riverside Park drew crowds like moths to a flame. For Ethan Caldwell, a 22-year-old college junior with a knack for finding hidden gems, the park's chaos was a deterrent. He'd long known of a secret vantage point, a sump tucked behind a dead-end street, shielded by trees and offering an unobstructed view of the fireworks. It was a place he'd discovered with friends years ago, a clandestine oasis where the booms and bursts felt personal, unmarred by the clamor of the masses. This year, with the holiday falling on a Saturday, Ethan saw an opportunity to turn the sump into the backdrop for a perfect date. He'd been seeing Ashley Monroe, a spirited art major with a laugh that could light up a room, for a few months. Their dates had been casual, coffee shops, movie nights, but Ethan wanted to elevate things. He texted her with a tantalizing promise. A private fireworks show, just the two of them, away from the sweaty crowds and impossible parking. Ashley was intrigued, her enthusiasm palpable even through her texts. Ethan planned meticulously, packing a backpack with a large blanket, a bottle of tequila, soda, and plastic cups. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ashley arrived at his house, her sundress fluttering in the evening breeze. They set off on foot, the park's distant roar growing louder as they approached. Bypassing the gridlocked parking lot, Ethan led Ashley down a quiet residential street that dead-ended at the sump's rusted gate. The rectangular basin was surrounded by a chain-link fence, but the gate hung ajar, as it always did, inviting them into its secluded embrace. Inside, the sump was a tangle of trees and overgrown brush, sloping down to a small grassy clearing at its base. Ethan felt a thrill of anticipation as they descended, the world above fading into a distant hum. The sky was darkening, and the first fireworks were due any moment. He spread the blanket on the smoothest patch of ground, realizing too late that the sump's canopy blocked out most of the ambient light. They turned on their phone flashlights, propping them up like makeshift lanterns, and mixed their first round of tequila sodas. The first firework exploded overhead, painting the sump in fleeting bursts of red and gold. Ethan and Ashley settled onto the blanket, their shoulders brushing as they sipped their drinks and marveled at the display. The sump felt like their own private theater, the fireworks a spectacle crafted just for them. But the magic was short-lived. A rustle came from the brush behind them, sharp and deliberate, like footsteps crunching through dry leaves. They froze, their laughter dying in their throats. Ethan swung his flashlight toward the sound, but its weak beam revealed only shadows. Ashley's voice was tight. "What was that?" "Probably just a raccoon," Ethan said, trying to sound convincing. He explained that the sump was rarely visited, known only to a few of his friends. But doubt gnawed at him. The noise had been too heavy, too purposeful. They turned back to the fireworks, but the ease of the moment was gone. Minutes later, another sound, a twig snapping, sent Ethan's pulse racing. This time Ashley didn't hear it, but she noticed his tension and asked what he was looking at. "Nothing," he lied, not wanting to ruin the date he'd so carefully planned. But paranoia took root. During a particularly bright volley of fireworks, Ethan glanced over his shoulder and froze. Illuminated for a split second in the trees above them was a figure, a tall, dark silhouette, motionless, as if watching. His heart lurched. "There's someone up there," he whispered, gripping Ashley's arm. She turned, but the light faded, plunging the sump back into darkness. "Where?" she asked, her voice trembling. Before he could answer, the fireworks paused, leaving them in an oppressive silence. When the next burst lit the sky, the figure was gone. Ashley's fear was palpable now. "I want to leave," she said, her eyes wide. Ethan nodded, his own nerves frayed. They scrambled to pack the blanket and bottles, the fireworks still booming overhead. Just as they finished, the show ended abruptly, plunging the sump into darkness. Their flashlights cast feeble beams as they climbed the hill, every rustle in the brush amplifying their dread. Near the top, Ethan couldn't resist shining his light into the trees where he'd seen the figure. His breath caught. A black-clad person stood just 10 feet away, their face obscured by a hood despite the summer heat. For a moment, they were still, a predator sizing up its prey. Then with a sudden lunge, they charged through the brush, a guttural shout tearing from their throat. Ethan shoved Ashley toward the gate, screaming, "Go!" They sprinted down the street, adrenaline propelling them past the park's lingering crowds. Glancing back, Ethan saw no one following, but the terror lingered. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of his house, collapsing onto the porch, breathless and shaken. Ashley was furious, her trust in Ethan shaken by the ordeal. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a prankster, a homeless person, or a curious local. But the figure's deliberate pursuit suggested something darker. Ethan never returned to the sump. The memory of that hooded figure, watching them from the shadows, haunted his dreams. He and Ashley drifted apart soon after, the date a grim milestone in their fleeting romance. Years later, he heard rumors of strange activity in the sump, whispers of late-night gatherings, figures in dark clothing, but he dismissed them as urban legends. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they'd narrowly escaped something far worse than a prank that 4th of July. Story 3. The Unfinished House. In the sprawling outskirts of Oak Ridge, where new neighborhoods sprouted like weeds, an unfinished house stood as a silent sentinel amidst a sea of construction. Its skeletal frame, little more than floorboards, 2x4s, and a cement basement, drew the curiosity of thrill seekers and bored teens alike. For Zach Reynolds, a charismatic 22-year-old with a penchant for adventure, the house was a playground, a place to chase thrills under the cover of night. On the 4th of July, after a raucous evening of fireworks with friends, Zach proposed a late-night excursion to the house, his eyes gleaming with mischief. 4 others joined him, including Ryan, a skeptical 27-year-old who preferred the comfort of a bar, and Adam, a lanky 19-year-old eager to prove his nerve. The group arrived at the site under a moonlit sky, the air still warm from the day's heat. 2 of their companions, a couple more interested in each other than exploration, lost interest quickly and left, leaving Zach, Ryan, and Adam to venture inside. The house loomed before them, its gaping windows like empty eyes. The main floor was a maze of exposed beams, the basement a cold, cavernous space with cement walls that seemed to swallow sound. A rickety staircase connected the 3 levels, sturdy enough to navigate but creaking under their weight. Zach, ever the leader, warned them to keep their phone flashlights off to avoid drawing attention from the finished homes nearby. "We don't need cops ruining the fun," he said, his grin barely visible in the dim light. They moved as a unit, their footsteps echoing in the hollow space. The house felt alive, its unfinished state amplifying every sound. the groan of wood, the rustle of debris scattered by the wind. As they reached the second floor, a voice, low and indistinct, drifted up from below. Ryan froze. "Did you hear that?" Zach nodded, his bravado faltering. They hurried downstairs, expecting to find a stray animal or a fallen board, but the basement was empty. Before they could relax, a thud came from upstairs, sharp and deliberate. They raced back up, hearts pounding, only to find nothing. The pattern repeated, noises from above, then below, then above again, each sound pulling them deeper into the house's unsettling rhythm. Ryan's nerves frayed. "This place is screwing with us," he muttered, half convinced the noises were tricks of the wind. Zach, however, was undeterred, his curiosity outweighing his fear. They descended to the basement, moving slowly, their eyes straining in the near darkness. Ryan's gaze caught a flicker of movement on the staircase. A figure shrouded in shadow, climbing silently. A faint glow from a phone illuminated their hand, but their face remained hidden. "Zach, Adam, is that you?" Ryan whispered, his voice barely audible. Both friends were right beside him, their faces pale. "Not us," Adam said, his voice trembling. Before Ryan could react, a stack of metal pipes leaning against the wall toppled down the stairs with a deafening crash. It wasn't an accident. Someone had pushed them. The realization hit like a thunderbolt. They weren't alone. Panic seized them, and they bolted for the exit, stumbling over debris in their haste. Outside, they gathered on the street, breathless and arguing. Zach insisted it was their departed friends playing a prank, but Ryan was adamant. "Those two wouldn't stick around to mess with us," he said. "That was someone else." The argument was cut short when Zach realized his keys were missing, likely dropped in the house. Against Ryan's protests, he insisted on going back. "Wait here," he said, disappearing into the darkness. Ryan and Adam stood on the road, the silence between them heavy. Ryan's eyes darted to the house's right side, where a large, indistinct shape seemed to move in the shadows. He blinked, unsure if it was his imagination, but the unease grew. Minutes later, Zach emerged, keys in hand, his face ashen. "There was someone in there," he said, his voice low. "I saw them on the second floor, just standing there." Determined to prove it was a prank, Zach circled to the back of the house, Ryan and Adam trailing reluctantly. As they reached the rear, Zach froze, his body tensing. "Run!" he hissed. Ryan didn't hesitate, sprinting toward the road, assuming both friends were behind him. But when he reached the street, only Zach was there. A massive dumpster loomed ahead, and Zach, on its opposite side, suddenly shouted, "We don't want any trouble!" Ryan's blood ran cold as Zach gestured frantically for him to run to the truck. They piled in, tires screeching as they sped away. In the safety of the truck, Zach explained, a tall, dark figure had emerged from behind the dumpster, moving toward him with unsettling purpose. Adam, who'd reached his own car, later revealed a chilling detail. He'd seen 3 figures chasing him in his rearview mirror as he fled. The friends debated what they'd encountered. Neighbors playing a cruel joke? Vagrants guarding their squat? Or something more sinister, as Ryan feared? A group with darker intentions, perhaps tied to the house's eerie reputation? Zach admitted he'd been chased at the house before, months earlier, though he'd dismissed it as a one-off. The possibility that the same group haunted the site, using it for unknown purposes, sent a chill through Ryan. He imagined cult-like gatherings, shadowy figures meeting under the cover of night, their presence disturbed by the trio's intrusion. The 4th of July, with its chaos and distractions, would have been the perfect night for such activities. Years later, Ryan avoided the neighborhood, now fully developed with cookie-cutter homes. The unfinished house was gone, replaced by a manicured lawn, but its memory lingered. A reminder of the night he and his friends stumbled into something they couldn't explain and barely escaped.